We have a lot to unpack here. These are all of the books that I'm going to be talking about today. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Pamela and today we are going to be talking about all of the books that Booktok made me read. I only have like 30 minutes to talk, so I'm gonna try to fit all of them into this video. But for the past couple of months, I've been obsessed with reading and I've been back in like my bookworm era. I thought that I would share with you guys all the books that Booktok made me read. Recently, like I said, I've gotten back into it and I don't have anyone else to talk about this. As much as I can talk to my boyfriend about it, at the end of the day, he hasn't read these books. He doesn't really care. I tell my sister, she doesn't really care either. So definitely someone out there has to care about these books. And again, I will be giving a very brief little review as well as what the book is about so that I don't make this too long. But I will be doing in-depth reviews for all of these books individually because I love watching booktube videos. So without further ado, let's get started. I actually have a Notion template like on my computer for keeping track of books that I read. If you guys are interested in the template and maybe you guys want to keep track of your own books and when you guys read, definitely let me know because I will share it with you guys. I have been writing down all of my reviews, everything that I think about all of these books in my Notion template because again, I don't have anyone else to talk about this with. So I have all of my books laid out here and I'm just going to be doing it in the order that I read them. In case you are wondering, I am currently reading It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I know that I'm so late to the game for Colleen Hoover with this specific book. I have read one of Colleen's other books in here, which we are going to talk about, but I am finally getting on the It Ends With Us train. My boyfriend got me It Starts With Us a few weeks ago. He sent me a picture of it and he was like, do you want this? I was like, yes, because everybody was talking about it, but I had to go to Target and I ended up picking up this. So I started it last night. I am about 100 pages in, so I'm hoping that by Sunday I can finish it. Today's Thursday, so pray for me. But let's get started with the very first book. This was actually back in May and it is called Hopeless, also by Colleen Hoover. I loved this book so much. This is actually what got me into reading, which is why I thought that I would kind of do it like in order of the books that I started up until what I am currently reading now. But this book is about a girl named Sky and she meets this guy named Bean. Basically, Sky, I adore Sky. She is just everything. She stands her ground, she's confident, and she's not gonna put up with anything that anybody like gives her. She's very independent. She has been homeschooled basically all her life. I think her senior year of high school, she finally convinces her mom that she is going to go to public school, and her mom is like, okay, fine. At this public school, she ends up meeting Dean, and then she finds out that he, I think, lives near where she lives. They end up going on like runs together, and they end up just getting closer. You will find out in this book why it is called Hopeless, what Dean has to do with her, what the mom, you know, has to do with her as well. I loved this book. There is a little bit of a trigger warning. This does have to do with like a little bit of suicide. I think there's drugs and then there's also abuse in the book. So this is more of like a darker kind of twisted romance. Nothing like super crazy that it's like, okay, like I don't know if I want to read this. It's not scary. Definitely, I loved the characters. I loved Dean so much. There were some moments where I was like, overall, definitely a really great read. Like I said, I don't want to spoil it, but when I first read this book, I gave it like a 5 out of 5 because I was obsessed with it. Now I definitely give it like a 4, maybe 3.5 out of 5. Obviously not the most like amazing romance in the world, but this book definitely does suck you in. The beginning is a little bit slow, but once you get into it, you are going to be like, wow, like this is why this happens. This is why the book is called that. And overall, really, really great. I annotated, not really annotated, but I bookmarked like a lot of different things because I loved this book so much. Next is The Hating Game. Oh my god, I can't stop talking about how much I love this book. I read this actually a few months ago and it was so good. I gave this book a 5 out of 5. I just feel like this is one of those books that every now and then you just want to reread it because it's so cute. The banter throughout the book is so adorable, and there is a movie for this book. I rented it on YouTube. I think it was like $4. I could not finish it. I could not get through more than 20 minutes of it. It was so bad. Like, it was nothing like what I thought it was going to be. It felt so rushed, and with this book, like, it's not rushed at all, obviously, but the movie was just so rushed. I was like, I can't do this. So I never even finished it. The book is so much better than the movie. Some of the tropes in this book are enemies to lovers, work adversaries, basically like workplace enemies, opposites attract, office romance, sunshine versus grumpy, they're rivals, there's forced proximity, bed sharing, and then height difference. I don't know if you guys like care about any of that, but this is some of the tropes that were in this book, and it is about Lucy and Josh. Lucy works at a publishing company called Gammon Publishing, and then Josh works at another publishing company called Bexley, and they are both the assistants to the CEOs at these two separate publishing companies. One day, both of the companies merge, and now there are two CEOs and there are two assistants, which are Josh and Lucy. And the two CEOs at the top basically say that there can only be one assistant, essentially, and they both have to fight for this position, which is why it's called the hating game, because they do little games throughout the office where they pretend that they hate each other, but deep down you're like, wait, like, do they really hate each other? And Lucy, like, there were some things that got me annoyed about Lucy in the book, because I was like, girl, like, literally, like, he doesn't hate you. Like, he does little things now and then, which is like, okay, like, that was like a little bit like out there, but I just feel like they have such a good little chemistry. The romance, like the way that it escalates, and then the way that Lucy like stands up as well for Josh in certain scenarios, and the way that Josh stands up for Lucy, like, it just makes me so happy. It warms my heart. Basically throughout the story, they do things to provoke each other, and as soon as they start to get to know each other a little bit more, and then, you know, compete to get this role, they just go through a series of really cute and funny stuff that they have to go through, and you will seriously fall in love with Josh at the end of this book. Like, I really want to reread this, hopefully before the end of the year. If not, I will be rereading this in January, but this is just such an adorable book. Definitely a 5 out of 5 for me. Also, really quick side note, some of these books I read while I was on my period, so I was like extra emotional for no reason, and this book made me cry at the end, which is like, now that I'm looking back, I'm like, girl, why did you cry at the end? But it's like, when you see the characters get to where they get in the end, you're like, I love them so much. Like, he was my book boyfriend for like a month. I literally did not want to put this book down. Read it in like 2 or 3 days, but I don't know why I cried at the end. Like I said, I was just on my period, and with these other books, I was also on my period when I read them, so I cried for no reason, but I love this book so much. Next is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. I actually just finished my second Christina Lauren book 2 days ago, so I will be talking about that. But this book also was just so adorable. When I first read it, I also gave it a 5 out of 5, but now I give it like a 4 out of 5. It was not like the most amazing book out there, but it is such a cute romance. I also read this over the summer when I went to Pennsylvania for the weekend with my family, so it was a really cute little summer vibe. Definitely, you know, worth reading. It is about this girl named Olive, and then the main like guy character is named Ethan, and basically Olive has a sister named Amy, however you want to say it. I said Ami just because it was A-M-I, but yeah, Olive has a sister named Ami, and she wins everything. Like, she has the best luck when it comes to winning raffles and giveaways and all that kind of stuff, and she's also kind of like a little bit cheap. But basically, Ami is going to be getting married, and she ends up winning this like raffle thing for a full honeymoon, fully paid, everything. It's an all-inclusive place, and she wins like the plane tickets there, she wins the stay there. It is non-refundable, she cannot change it, she can't do anything, and she has it booked for the exact day after her wedding. I also forgot to mention that Ethan's brother is actually the one that is marrying Ami. So Ami's sister is Olive, and then Ami's husband, he has a brother named Ethan. So Olive and Ethan are the two love interests, and they hate each other in the book. They have always hated each other for the longest time. For as long as Ami and her husband have been dating, they have just always hated each other. So at the wedding, basically everybody gets sick from seafood that is there except Olive and Ethan, because they don't eat the seafood. Olive, I think, doesn't like seafood, and then Ethan just doesn't like buffets because he's like, it's a sanitary thing, I just don't like it. So they're the only ones at the wedding, like reception thing, that don't get sick. And Ami's like, well, Olive, you have to go to my honeymoon. Like, I can't go because I'm sick, so you need to go with Ethan because, you know, it can't go to waste. And Olive is just like, fine, like, I'll do it, after a little bit of convincing. So when they go, they have to do fake dating. They have to pretend, you know, obviously that they're on their honeymoon because her sister is sick actually and she can't go, so she pretends to be her sister. They're pretending to be married, they're on their honeymoon, they have to be in love. And some of the tropes in this book are enemies to lovers, hate to love. There's one bad trope: fake relationship, secret relationship, vacation romance, and also fade to black. There is little to no spice in this book at all, which at first I was like, I need to read a book with spice, but then I was like, you know what, like, I actually liked how Christina Lauren did this. Christina Lauren is not someone who, well, Christina Lauren's actually Christina and Lauren, but they don't really do a lot of spice, which is totally fine with me. But in this book, like, I thought that it was going to be a problem because the only spicy scene that is about to happen, it literally is like a fade to black scene. It happens and then it like immediately, like right when the spicy scene is like about to start, it goes right to the next chapter. And everybody on Booktok hated that, but I loved the way that Christina Lauren did it. So overall, really, really good. And then throughout the book, you'll just see in the end, like, will they date? Will they not? How does this fake romance work? You know, what happens when they get back from the honeymoon? Personally, one thing that I did not like about this book is that when they get back from the honeymoon, it's very hard to stay interested in a book after the vacation part ends, because it's like, now it's not really as interesting as how it was before. So that is my only thing that I didn't like. The end was just a little bit boring for me, but overall still a really great book and a 4 out of 5. That was a little bit long, but the next book is It Happened One Summer. I don't have any good things to say about this book, which is so rude, but guys, like, I did not like this book. I am not a fan of Tessa Bailey's writing, and the other book right after this is another Tessa Bailey book, which I am so sad because I read this book thinking it was going to be good. I really liked the plot and like what it was about, but the way that it was executed was just not what I thought it was going to be. Since I didn't like this Tessa Bailey book, I was like, okay, let me try another Tessa Bailey book because maybe I will like that one. I was completely wrong. The book that we're going to talk about after this one was even worse than this one. I rated this a 3 out of 5, which is still very generous. I rated the one after this a 2 out of 5, but we're going to focus on It Happened One Summer. This is about a girl named Piper, and then the other guy, his name is Brendan, the other love interest. And basically, Piper is a socialite. She is a influencer. She lives in LA. She's really rich. Her parents give her everything that she wants, and she basically has all this money that she can do anything she wants with. She has a sister as well and has never gotten a job, and Piper one day does something really bad and it calls her parents' attention, and her stepdad is basically like, you know what, you are going to be sent away. He's like, I am going to send you to Washington for the summer. You have 3 months to redeem yourself, and when you come back, I hope that you are a different person and you understand the concept of money. You understand like the other people out there are not as fortunate as you are, which, you know, props to the stepdad for doing that. And then the mom is like, you know what, like, this is a little bit harsh, but I agree. And Piper's sister is like, well, I don't want her to go alone to Washington, so I'm gonna go with her. Piper and her mom and her sister, they all used to live in Washington before they all moved to LA, and then the mom married the rich stepdad that they're with right now. That is basically how they have like all of their money. So there is already a home for them in Washington that they used to live in many years ago, like literally when they were like, I think 3 or 4. So Piper and her sister have to go there. It's very raggedy, broken down. It's obviously not anything that they are used to because they live in LA and they are very rich. So when they are there, they meet this guy, well, Piper meets this guy named Brendan, and Brendan tells her, you know, you're just like everybody else. You are not going to fit in here. You're going to leave after a week. You're not going to like it. And some of the tropes in this book are enemies to lovers, rich versus poor, opposites attract, different worlds, and then sunshine versus grumpy. Piper is the sweetest thing ever. I really do like Piper and her character development. That is one thing that I do like about this book, which is why I gave it a 3 out of 5, because I love the way that Piper again went from like a rich socialite girl, not really caring about money, spending whatever she wants, to now understanding the value of it. And then at the end, she's like, you know what, like, I really can't be acting the way that I act because it's not realistic at all. And Brendan kind of helps bring her back like down to earth. And the only thing that I did not like about this book is how unrealistic it was. Like literally after 2 weeks of Brendan meeting Piper, he was in love with her and he was like, I need to be with her. Like, this woman is made for me. Like, she's my dream girl. And I'm just like, no, like, that is so unrealistic. Like, it is not possible for you to fall in love with somebody that quickly. So that aspect of it I did not like, because I am someone who, I need to be reading a book that is at least somewhat realistic. Otherwise I cannot be attracted or like attached to these characters. I was not attached to Brendan at all. I didn't really like his character. Like, obviously where he came from, him being a fisherman and being the way that he is, he was very sweet, but again, it was just very weird, unrealistic. And there's a lot of spicy scenes in this book. That is one thing about Tessa Bailey, is that she writes a lot of really good spicy scenes. Again, I had no attachment to the characters, so I didn't really care about the spicy scenes that much, but if you like that, Tessa Bailey is definitely your go-to. But another thing about Tessa Bailey is that she writes very masculine men and very like feminine women. So she's just like, oh, men have to do this, women have to do that. Like, that is what I've noticed about Tessa Bailey. I don't really like that in books, but again, I gave this a 3 out of 5. Now let's talk about the book that I hated the most out of all of the books that I've read and all of the books that Booktok has recommended me. I was so sad when I picked this up, and it was Fix Her Up. I despised this book, like, not even to be like that person that's like overreacting, but when I heard other people on TikTok talking about Fix Her Up and then it happened one summer, everybody was like, oh, these books are so good, you're gonna love it, Tessa Bailey writes the best spice scenes. I'm not gonna lie, the spice scenes were really good in this book. It's just like, as you could see, there were barely any annotations in this book. That's how you know it just was not good. Like, you see other books that I read and you're like, okay, she annotated it a lot. Like, these were really good books. It's not even annotating, it's just kind of like bookmarking, but I love just going back to the pages. With this book, it literally has 4 bookmarks. Like, it was such a bad book. I gave it 2 out of 5. Let me just explain the preface of it so that it makes a little bit more sense. This is about a girl named Georgie Castle and a guy named Travis Ford. Georgie Castle and Travis Ford, they grew up together. Georgie has a brother and a sister, and Travis was the best friend of her brother. Over time, as the years went on, they grew apart. Travis ended up becoming a star baseball player. He went off and he played, you know, baseball. He was very rich, very famous, and he was known as a player. He was known as the guy that every girl wanted to get with, and everybody knew that they could get with him because he was so easy. He was just like literally a player. Georgie, on the other hand, has been in love with Travis all her life, and she has always just basically been like obsessed with him. And to me, like, that was a little bit weird in the book because they end up basically fake dating later on. But it's so weird to me because I'm like, you were obsessed with him all your life and now like you finally like got to be with him. I don't know, like, to me that was like a little bit weird. But let me continue. It gets worse. So Georgie is, you know, still living where she lives, and she is a clown for a living. Like, when I say clown for a living, like, I literally mean her job. She is a clown. She goes to children's like parties, birthday parties, and she's a clown. Like, that is her job, and no one takes her seriously. That is her main issue in her life, is that her family sees her as a kid because she literally is a clown for a living. That is her job. And then also, she's just never been seen as like the mature child. Travis has to come back home after being injured, and his entire baseball career is basically turned away, and he can no longer be playing baseball. Georgie comes up with this plan. She wants Travis to get back on his feet, get his life together. Travis gets offered this opportunity, I think from his agent, saying that he can like host this thing, but everybody sees him as a player. Everyone sees him as like not as a family guy, and he is someone who cannot be taken seriously. So Georgie's like, you know what? I'm in the same boat. I can't be taken seriously by my family. Everyone thinks that I'm a kid, and you want to get back on your feet. You want, you know, this little job to help you be seen more seriously so you can be a family man. And so Georgie's like, let's fake date so that, you know, I can be seen as mature and then you can also get your job. That's where my problem was. They both have their own issues, and I wrote this down. Georgie wants to be seen as mature because everyone sees her as a kid. Travis is just a lazy hot mess who has to basically come into retirement after being injured from baseball, and it's like a sports commentator job. Like, there can be so many other ways that Georgie can be seen as mature. You don't have to date a guy that is literally known for being a hot mess around town to be seen as mature. That is just what threw me off, because I'm like, Georgie, like, there are so many other things you can do to prove to your family your worth, and it does not mean going and dating a guy that literally like does not have his life together. Travis is so rude throughout the book. He has so many jealousy issues. I hate guys that are like overprotective and jealous, especially like when it comes to the way that Travis was and the way that like Tessa Bailey wrote him. Like, I am not a fan of guys that are written like that. It makes it so hard for me to like them, and I had no connection to Georgie whatsoever. I did not like her at all throughout this book. Again, she's very immature, and you can easily tell by that, her proposing the idea of let's date so I can be seen as mature. It's like, no, that doesn't really make sense. So I did not like either of them. Travis, I had no connection to him whatsoever, was never gonna be one of my book boyfriends, like literally despised him. He was rude. He didn't start being nice to her until the very end, and he only liked her and he only drew his attention to her when she was wearing like a super tight dress, or her cleavage was showing, or she had her hair down. Like, when she actually looked like a girl, basically, it was when Travis was like, oh, like, you're hot. and it's just like, it's a no for me. There were some scenes that I was like, okay, that's not bad, and the ending was absolutely terrible. Like, this was such a waste of my time. It took me 3 weeks to get through this book because I did not want to. I'm not someone who, I will never put a book down if I don't like it. I will force myself to get through it, and I forced myself to get through this book as much as I hated it. So definitely do not read this unless you want to be annoyed. That's it. Now we're gonna talk about my favorite books that I've read so far. Like, I'm smiling just thinking about this because these books physically, like, I loved them so much, and it is The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. The next book after this is also a book by Elena Armas. First of all, I just want to say, like, I did not know that Elena Armas, like, this was her debut novel. Like, this book literally shook Booktok. Everybody was talking about this, and they're actually making a movie for this as well. So I am praying, like, praying at night that it is going to be good, because the guy that did the Hating Game movie is also going to be publishing a movie for this. So that's why I'm like really sad, because the Hating Game was so bad, and I really hope that this book, like the movie, is a little bit better. If you liked the Hating Game and the Unhoneymooners, this is basically like the baby, like the love child of these books combined. So that is why I already love this book already, because these were amazing. It is about Catalina Martin and Aaron Blackford. I loved Aaron Blackford so much. He made me just rethink my entire life because of how adorable he was. Like, literally, he is the sweetest thing ever. Aaron's love language is literally everything. It's like physical touch and like casual flirting. Like, I just loved this book so much. It made me cry in the end. Again, I was on my period, but genuinely, if I read this again, I know I would cry. As you could see, like in the beginning, it is a very slow burn. You will not get a kiss out of these two until the last 150 pages. That is when it finally starts to get a little bit spicy. That does not mean that the beginning is bad. It's just that it is a lot more, like, you know, spicy towards the end. Aaron is just everything. Catalina has to go to Spain because she is going to her sister's wedding, and she needs a date, and her family keeps saying, you know, who's gonna be your date? Are you gonna bring someone? Are you, like, you know, who are you seeing? Whatever. Catalina used to be with someone many years ago. It did not go that well. Left her a little bit traumatized, and she was like, I'm gonna leave Spain and I'm gonna come to New York. Came to New York, and she works at this company. I think it's like a tech company. Aaron, I think, is her boss, if I'm not mistaken. Catalina keeps talking in the office about how she needs someone to come to the wedding with her, and Aaron overhears this, and literally in the very first like I will read it to you guys. The very first sentence of the book, Aaron says, I'll be your date to the wedding. That is literally the very first line to this book. And throughout the entire, like, until we get to the middle of the book, Catalina finally is like, oh, like, I guess Aaron wants to be my date to the wedding. Like, it's like he's been saying it from the beginning. He's never even hated her. Like, she just has this hate towards him. And let me just really quickly say, like, the tropes of this book. Enemies to lovers. But not really, because Catalina is basically her own enemy. If you know, you know. Catalina is her own enemy. It's boy falls first, which is my newest favorite trope. I love boy falls first so much. Like, it makes me so happy when it's finally just not like the girl trying to prove herself to the guy. Like, I love a good little boy falls first. There is fake dating. There's one bed trope, forced proximity, and it is not dual point of view. So that made me like a little bit sad, but I overall still loved this book. Throughout the book, Catalina is being convinced by Aaron that he will be her date to the wedding, and he says, I will go with you, but can you please do this thing for me? And he's like, okay. So then she has to go to this event that he also needs kind of like a date for, and after this event they realize, you know, maybe they don't really hate each other as much as how Catalina thinks in her mind. And towards the end of the book, when they're at the wedding and stuff, Aaron is just everything. Like, he swoops Catalina's family off their feet. They're like, I cannot believe you landed him. Like, he's everything. Aaron is just everything. Like, he is such a sweetheart. He really will do anything for Catalina, and she is like so hard-headed and stubborn, and she just doesn't see that, like, Aaron literally loves her. Aaron is not a jealous lover, unlike other books that I've read. Like, Tessa Bailey traumatized me with her books. Like, I cannot stand a jealous man in books, and Aaron is nothing like that. He is in love with Catalina. He literally learned Spanish for her because he knew he was going to Spain for the wedding. Like, he was literally practicing Spanish to be ready when he was going to Spain. Again, this is an extreme slow burn, so be prepared to, again, not get a kiss out of these two until the last like 150-200 pages. Something that I didn't like though about this book is that it literally is all about the wedding and how Catalina needs to find a date, and we get, I think, like a chapter and a half maybe about the wedding. Like, we barely get any information about the wedding, which is one thing that did annoy me a little bit. And also, I would have minded a little bit more of like Spanish culture into this book. Elena, Armas, you know, Hispanic, and I'm also Hispanic and Dominican, and I would have loved a little bit more of like the Spanish culture in this. There were some Spanish words here and there, but I feel like diving into Catalina's culture would have been a little bit more fun to read about as well with everything else. There were so many other scenes that I felt like were very unrealistic and kind of didn't really pertain to the plot, but I will be doing a full in-depth review on all these books, especially Elena Armas, because I love this book so much. I literally gave it a 5 out of 5. I cannot recommend this enough to anybody who just wants to fall in love with Aaron. Next is another book that literally warms my heart every time I talk about it. It is The American Roommate Experiment. I will be rereading both of these books in January probably. Like, I'm not even kidding. I loved these books so much. Apparently Elena Armas isn't coming out with another book until 2023, which is fine because it's only a month away. The Spanish Love Deception was Elena Armas's first book. This is her second book, and I would recommend reading them in order. Reading the Spanish Love Deception first before you read this. They are two standalone books, so you don't have to read them to know what the other is about, but a lot of things in this book will make more sense if you do read the other one first. Rosie Graham and Lucas Martin. Lucas is Catalina's cousin, and he is also coming from Spain, and Rosie used to work at a high-paying tech job, and she quits after she writes a romance book anonymously, and it gets picked up by a publishing company because they think it is amazing, and they tell her, like, we will offer you this much to write another book. And I think she has like 8 weeks to write this second novel, and she knows nothing about romance. She basically has the biggest writer's block in the world, and she doesn't know what to write this book about. And to make matters worse, the ceiling in her apartment literally falls, like it collapses while she's in her apartment. And she's like, okay, well, Catalina is on her honeymoon with Aaron, so I can just go stay in her apartment. And then while Rosie is staying in the apartment, someone knocks on the door and is like, hey, like, I'm staying here too for the next few weeks before I go back to Spain. And she's like, who are you? And he's like, I'm Catalina's cousin, like, I'm Lucas. And she's like, well, I'm staying here because my apartment literally collapsed. And he was like, well, I'm staying here because I wasn't gonna go and like stay in a hotel for, you know, like the next 8 weeks. So they both have to compromise and basically stay in one apartment, which is why it's called The American Roommate Experiment. They have to be roommates in Catalina's apartment. And Lucas overhears one day that Rosie is struggling to write this book, and he's like, you know what, I'll be your fake boyfriend. I can go on these dates with you and we can do these things. I will do a ton of research and I will plan and just make this like perfect for you so that you can get everything that you need and really write this experience like truly from your heart. And she's like, I don't know if this is a good idea. If Catalina finds out, it'll be really bad. And he's like, no, like, trust me, we'll just keep this between us. And so they go on a series of dates, and when I tell you, Lucas is such a sweetheart. He is just the sweetest thing ever. Like, all the other guys that I've read about, like, they're hot, they're everything, like, they are literally like beautiful men, but Lucas is just like such a sweetheart. Like, he truly is such an adorable, funny, cute guy. Like, genuinely, he's so adorable. It's good to learn about like how they come together in the end, and if this really helps her, you know, does she get to publish the novel? Lucas is going back to Spain. What is going to happen? Do they fall in love? Like, it is just overall so adorable. Some of the tropes are forced proximity. They have to share a studio apartment. There's fake dating because they have to do a series of dates. It's like social media / Instagram love because they know each other from online. There's minimal spicy scenes, but the ones that are very spicy are so good. Like, Elena Armas knows how to write spice. And there's also a little bit of family conflict in this book. So overall, loved this so much. Again, there were some scenes that I was like, this is a little bit unnecessary, but truly I loved this so much. And like I said, I will be rereading this. So if you take anything from this video, is that Elena Armas is such a good author and I love her so much. This was a 5 out of 5. And the last book we are going to be talking about is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. She also wrote the Unhoneymooners, which I talked about earlier. I just finished this book 2 days ago, and I had a few little bookmarks in here, but I loved this book so much. It is basically about this guy named Elliot and this girl named Macy. Macy has a mom who passed away when she was younger, so it's just her and her dad has these letters that were left by the mom. So before her mom passed away, she had cancer, And before her mom passed away, she wrote a series of things that she wants her husband, aka, you know, Macy's dad, to go back to anytime Macy is going through anything. So when she gets her period, when she has her first heartbreak, when she goes through anything, she wants the dad to go through these letters and know exactly what to do. Like, coming from a mom's point of view, she has all these things written down for Macy to know, and every time she goes through these things, the dad, you know, is there for her. And one of the things that the mom wrote in there before she passed away was that when Macy just wants to get away from it all, and she just wants to be away from everybody, she wants the dad to go and buy kind of like a summer house or a weekend house like an hour away. So every time Macy wants to get away from the world, she can just go there. When Macy and her dad are going and they're touring the houses, and you know, they're trying to find a perfect weekend home, they find a really nice house in a town, and in the closet there is a little boy reading. I think they meet, which is, you know, Elliot, and I think Macy and Elliot meet when they're like, I think like 6 or 7, I'm not sure. Like, I think they were like in middle school when they met. She meets him in the closet and she's like, what are you doing here? He's like, no one has ever lived here before. Like, the last owners moved out years ago. I live right next door. Like, are you gonna move in here? And she's like, yeah, my dad and I just bought this house. So over time, like every time Macy goes there every other weekend, Macy only knows Elliot in that town because they're literally neighbors. And so over time they become friends. And this also, what I really like about this book, it's not a dual point of view, but it has past and present. So some chapters will be talking about Macy and her life now, and then it will go back to Macy and her life when she was like in 6th grade, then 7th grade. And what I like is that it progresses throughout the book. So in the beginning, the chapters that are about the past will be about Macy in like high school, and then it'll be like, okay, when she was a freshman, and then she was a sophomore, and then it grows, like, you know, as the book gets closer to the end, and everything just starts to make sense. You understand like why, because on the back it literally says Macy went for a decade-long silence. Since they don't talk for over a decade, you definitely get to see those feelings come back of all those years where they did not talk, and then Macy and Elliot are now like, they randomly see each other again. And it's like, why did Macy go so long without talking to him? How was she able to literally just be like, you know what, like, we're done? And the crazy part is also that Macy's with somebody else. She's already in another relationship and she kind of has her life together. Elliot, as soon as she left him and was like, we're done, she and him just both went their own ways. And just seeing the story progress, seeing the past and present, why these things happened, why Macy is the way that she is, why Elliot is the way that he is, everything just makes so much sense. And I truly am so happy with the way that this book ended. It really did pull my heartstrings. Like, if you want to cry, if you want to literally be heartbroken, if you want to see a love story like so sad but like so sweet at the same time, definitely recommend Love in Other Words. I did not expect this book to be like as heart-wrenching as it was. It wasn't like, oh my god, like I'm gonna bawl my eyes out and like I'm never gonna love another book ever again. But truly, like, this is just such a sweet book, and I really want to reread this as well. Like, it just made me fall in love with Elliot so much, and just the way that he never stopped loving Macy after all these years. Even when he was with other people, he never stopped thinking about her. He loved her so much, and seeing her again just made him realize again, like, I've loved her all this time and I never will stop loving her. And I just love Elliot so much, and such a great love story. Definitely recommend. If you guys liked any of these book recommendations, definitely let me know in the comments if you've read any of these or which one you guys want me to dive into a little bit more. I will be doing book reviews for all of them because I love reading and I really want to go more in depth about them and really like talk about all of my notes that I wrote down, what I liked, what I didn't like, all that stuff. So let me know in the comments which one is your favorite or which one you definitely want to read, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!